Live with CDP, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast live on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and Anchor FM. Now here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Live with CDP podcast on this Wednesday, May 11th, 2022. Thanks for coming on today. It's season 3, episode 37 of Live with CDP podcast, my 147th podcast show in just over 2 years. So I'm looking forward to my guest today. Her name is Donni Black. She's a sports writer at Towson Towerlight newspaper. She's also a Towson Sports Network intern, and she's also a podcast host of her own podcast show, like I am with Live with CDP, called She's Got Lead. And she's also a CEO of a company called Beauty by Royal Array. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Donni about her schooling and trying to get into journalism and broadcasting as well. So just bear with me, guys, and I will bring Donni on. And again, I want to say thank you to everybody for watching this podcast live on my YouTube channel, Facebook, and then Twitter, and also later on audio via Apple, Google Podcasts as well. So just give me 1 second, and I'm going to bring on Donni. 1 second. Good morning, Donni. How you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much again for coming on the Live with CDP podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So how are things going right now? Are you in the Washington, D.C. area?
Yeah, I'm from the DMV. I particularly live in PG County, Maryland, so it's not really DC, but I'm nearby, like 20 minutes away.
20 minutes, okay. Because I used the Washington background for my guests. I try to pick out one for all my guests on here.
Oh, no, that's fine. Totally. I'm a fan of DC, so.
So how are things going with the newspaper and all, and the sports network and all that?
So the newspaper has been pretty well. I haven't really been writing for them recently. I was the associate editor back in November to like December, and then coming into the fall semester in January, I decided to step down and just become a regular sports writer. There wasn't much going on with the sports up here, so I wrote a couple of articles, but they weren't really timely, I guess, according to the editors of the paper. And the sports network also, I haven't really been working with them either because I'm also in the transition of transferring to the University of Pittsburgh. But when I was working with them back in the fall semester, it was pretty fun learning like how to follow the game action. I worked behind the camera for a majority of the time. We also would edit after the games to create like highlights for the game for sports so that people can go back and then also watch on our YouTube channel. It was a great experience learning all that type of stuff and then connecting with other people who are interested in sports at my school. So that's pretty much it.
I was going to say, I wish they had all this technology back in the 90s because I didn't know what I wanted to do in my 20s and stuff like that. I ended up taking law and security in college, but I just wish they had all this technology back then because now I can do my podcast 3-4 times a week on here. I do weekly blogging. I'm learning how to blog and write. And I'm also doing camera work as a camera operator as well for hockey games here in the Toronto area. So, and it's great because now I get a taste of live TV and also the podcasts as well.
Yeah, I haven't really experienced live TV just yet at Towson. We're working on like getting the exposure out, so everything is kind of pre-recorded and edited. But what do you like use for your podcast? I was thinking of switching to radio and things like that. So
Oh, I use StreamYard. StreamYard, my friend Jamie, the Philly sports guy, he's a huge Eagles fan. When I started out my podcast 2 years ago, I was just basically on Facebook Live, and it was just a basic podcast. And he told me, Chris, go to StreamYard. And I started using StreamYard, and he helped me. And it's great because I can put backgrounds on it. I can put tickers on the bottom and
Yeah.
promote my guests, and I can promote videos. So I'm going to tell you this. I do pay for StreamYard every month. Like, you can do it for free, but I pay $25 a month for StreamYard, and I think it's great. If anybody's out there wanting to start a podcast, um, nothing against Zoom, but I would go with StreamYard. I think StreamYard is the best for podcasting.
Yeah, I like the setup. It seems pretty cool. Like, so do you just transition it to get it like Spotify and Apple Podcasts?
Oh, what I do is right now, with StreamYard, I'm able to the I can talk. What I'm using is professional, which is $25 a month, and it lets me stream on three live platforms: YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And then what I do, Donnie, after each podcast show's over live, what I do is I download the audio from the StreamYard, and then it goes to Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, and Anchor FM. I'm telling you, for podcasting, I would recommend StreamYard, honestly. And if my guests don't feel like coming on live, I can pre-record a podcast, or they can come on live with me and just come on audio as well. There's so many options with StreamYard.
Wow. Yeah, I might have to look into that because I really do want to switch into just mainly audio. Since I'm transferring, I won't be like at home. Like, I for my podcast, it would really just be me and my dad, and we would do have like a setup in the house, and we would do a not live but pre-recorded, of course, but we would do the show. I would go back and I would edit it. But since I'm looking into transferring, I'll be further away. But I do want to keep some consistency, and the only reason I'm not so consistent is because it takes so long for me to edit and put the video up, and it's time consuming, especially dealing with school, juggling all of that.
Yeah.
So I never really have the time to do it. So I think having something like this would just so I can put it out there would be better. But I also like to edit because I can erase out like some mistakes. So I have to kind of see.
Yeah, I haven't done that with my podcast yet, editing. That's something I'm going to learn, but my podcasts are all live. But the thing with this is I can do it all on audio. Like, if I don't feel like going on camera or my guest doesn't, it's great. You can even do the podcast just strictly on audio as well. Now, you don't have to pay. Like, there's three prices for StreamYard. There's a professional one that's 25, and then there's another one that I think that's $50 a month, which lets you broadcast up to 8 platforms. But there's even a StreamYard that's a free version as well if you don't want to pay 25 a month. But honestly, anyone out there, I would recommend StreamYard, and it's very user friendly. And for my guests, there's no downloaded needed. It's just simply a link, and all you do is allow StreamYard access to your camera or microphone, and then type in your name as my guest, and that's it. And it's like I said, it's great. So the only thing I haven't done with this yet is learn how to edit my podcast shows, but all my podcast shows are live. So if there are mistakes, I just try to learn from them, and then
Yeah.
try to improve on my next podcast. But it's great because it gives me a wide audience with my platform on live and then on audio as well.
Yeah. That's definitely something that I should start looking into, like learning from your mistakes instead of erasing them.
Yeah, you know what? And I've come a long way in 2 years, and and like I said, I didn't take school for broadcasting or journalism, and I've looked into it. But my guests that have come on my podcast show told me doing this podcast right now is a form of radio, and I am getting my experience and learning from here, and and doing volunteer work with Rogers TV, which is a major TV cable company in the Toronto area. I'm getting my experiences there as well. So I'm trying to fight the age thing, and I'm also trying to do it without going to school. Don't get me wrong, schooling is important, but
Yeah.
apparently what I'm doing right now is my own form of schooling.
Yeah, I had to learn how to teach myself some of these things too because I graduated in 2020. So graduated during the pandemic. I was in quarantine for the entire summer. We came to Towson the fall semester of 2020. We got sent home. So that's what really motivated me to kind of start my podcast because I wasn't going to be able to be on campus and like experience things like the newspaper or the radio show that we have or the sports network that I currently work for. So I decided, maybe I should just get my podcast out there, start networking so that people know my name and my face so I won't be behind. Because honestly, I'm only 20, but I just feel like I'm behind the 8 ball. Sometimes a lot of people tell me that I'm not, but I just want to, I don't know, be a big name in the industry one day. So I try my hardest, like to keep doing a lot of stuff, like keep my name going, keep it out there, continue the podcast. Even when I transfer to Pitt, I know that they have like a studio that I can possibly do my podcast in as well, and then I'll look into the StreamYard. But I really just want to keep my name out there, and she's got the lead, so that when I do get a job, like they know the name and they know the face.
Yes, and one thing I've learned this too from my experience, it's a lot of work, like just promoting yourself, like I said, producing my own shows, booking guests,
Yeah.
uh, being flexible with my schedule, and also promoting yourself on social media is a full time job itself. Promoting myself on all my websites. I even joined TikTok. I figured I was too old for TikTok, but you know what? It's been great. TikTok has been a great tool to promote myself and my podcast and my guests as well.
Yeah, I have to look into that too. I've been learning how to do TikToks. I want to switch because I was a full time YouTuber at one point. Like I would mix the beauty and then I'll just upload like my podcast on there. So it's kind of beauty and sports and lifestyle. But like I said, editing is just it's very time consuming. I know how to edit, of course, but it's just really time consuming. So I was gonna switch over to the TikTok platform and still do the sports, the beauty, and the lifestyle. But I'm having trouble learning how to actually make the TikToks and doing like daily vlogs. So I have to look into that. And like you said, promoting yourself is really like it's a full-time job. Like I have my own business where I do lashes, so I had to start that from the bottom and then coming in with my podcast. I put that on my personal Instagram because I really wanted it to just reach out to people. So I was kind of looking into making another page for my podcast because it has a higher following than I did when it started, but I'm still not really that sure. Like I feel like people like the mix that I give on my social media page with my regular life and then switching it to sports. So I may keep it that way, but it really is it really does take a lot to even build up the confidence to promote yourself. Like just starting the podcast, I was so nervous. I'm like, are people gonna think that I don't know what I'm talking about? Are they gonna be like, I didn't even know that she would like sports. She doesn't even look like the type of girl to be in the sports. Like maybe she's just talking or she's just another pretty face who just wants to be around athletes. But um it really took a lot of confidence for me to just shut out my thoughts and then put it out there. So and it's been doing well. It's been I think almost a year or maybe yeah, yeah, almost a year. So,
Well, and like you said, I'm still learning every day, and I this is something I really have a passion for. And you know how I ended up getting into broadcasting was volunteering with a local basketball team a couple years ago, and they needed a camera operator for the game. I said I'll volunteer, but I had no idea what I was doing. So the producer showed me what I needed to film for the basketball game. It was a live basketball, pro basketball team, and they liked my work. They actually paid me $50 for doing it, and then they referred me to Rogers TV as
mhm.
a camera operator, and they accepted me. And I, at the first couple of times I did live camera work, I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. This is too much. But I started coming more and more and started developing my confidence. And I really started enjoying it. And then the pandemic struck. And as the pandemic struck, I said, you know what? I'm going to start my own podcast. And I basically got through the pandemic for 2 years, was doing my podcast. So actually, the game of basketball is actually how led me into doing my podcasting.
So how was it doing the live game action? Because working with the sports network, I was doing live games. I did field hockey. Did I? I don't think I did soccer yet. I did volleyball for the live game action, and I did a couple of basketball games. I was like you at the beginning, like this is too much standing for that long. Following the game. It was kind of hard. It was my first time, and they kind of just threw me right in there. So it was like it was a lot, and especially because I want to be in front of the camera, so I wasn't too fond that I was behind it. But it actually taught me a lot, and it teaches you how to be versatile in the business.
Absolutely, and that's the one thing I've learned with doing with TV work and now my podcast is to be flexible, obviously professional and versatile. Sometimes guests have to cancel at the last minute,
Hmm.
so the show's got to go on, or sometimes I guess it's having trouble getting on my podcast and the show's got to go on. So I'm still learning every day more and more about the broadcasting business with my podcast and with my volunteer work as a camera operator as well.
So when you reach out to people, like, do you just find them on LinkedIn? It seems like you have a lot of people.
Basically what it is, you know what, I'll be honest, I don't think I would have been able to do this in my 20s even if they had the technology, because back in my 20s I wasn't really that sociable. But because of my current job where I'm working, I've had to deal with people in the public the last 20 years, and it's really kind of build my confidence up. So what I do is I reach out to people on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, obviously, and LinkedIn, and just tell them what I'm about and what I'm trying to do. And everybody's been really supportive. Obviously, I've had some rejections and no's, but I
Yeah.
would say about 85% of the people I reach out to for my podcast or LinkedIn are cool with me. So it's basically just developing your confidence inside of you. If you don't have the confidence inside of you, then nobody else will.
Yeah, I definitely agree because it took me some time to learn how to understand how to be rejected, and then that's really what all the business about. A lot of people tell me like you're gonna get rejected, you're gonna get no's. Like recently, I made it to like the second interview for this really big internship that I really wanted, but I didn't get the job in the end. But then I another opportunity came for me, and I ended up going to the NFL draft. So it's like even though there's a lot of no's coming your way, there's also a lot of yeses, and you have to realize how to deal with those losses and also accept your wins. So I definitely understand like the broadcasting and the media business is definitely a hard business to get into, but I feel as though once you have your place and once you have your spot and your name, like there's it's endless possibilities of what you can do and accomplish.
Absolutely, and I've learned to promote myself. I've got a friend who's made my podcast t-shirts for me, my own live with CDP mug. So I've learned how to promote myself with coffee mugs and t-shirts and hats and stuff like that. And but the biggest thing right there is self-confidence. You have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in you can do this, then maybe it's not for you. But it's just, and you're going to get rejections. And the thing is, there's some days where it's like I get down in the dumps, but then I just decided I'm going to keep it keeps motivating me to improve and doing better. And like I said, 2 years ago, I couldn't get guests on my podcast for the first 4 months. I wasn't very good, but once I got my first guest to come on, then I got another guest, and then the word spread on YouTube and these other social media. Hey, this guy's a good guy. Check out his podcast or go on it. So it's just it takes a lot of work to do this.
Yeah, I had to for the start of my podcast, I had to actually make my own graphic. Like I have my own shirt too, and like this silhouette is actually the picture that I sent you. For I guess the graphic, but then my mom had turned it into like a silhouette and then we put it on the shirt.
Yeah.
So I look into some mugs, but yeah, I definitely have some shirts. I don't promote the shirts as much as I should. So I really have to work on I really have to work on promoting myself a little bit more and not being so scared. There's sometimes where I'm the most confident person in the room, and then
Yep.
sometimes I'm like the shyest person in the room. And that's why I also kind of force myself to keep talking. Like, I appreciate being on this live show. I never thought that I would actually do something live. Like, I'm always editing, starting over, retaking stuff because that's like what I've learned. So, I have to like really keep pushing myself. It's like if I get on camera sometime in class, like I'll have something in my head that I'm gonna say and it'll sound perfect. And then as soon as the camera turns on, I'll literally forget. But I have to tell myself like keep going, keep pushing. You're gonna make mistakes. A lot
Yep.
of people started where I started. So yeah.
Definitely. And one thing I like about the StreamYard too is comments. Monica Rose, who's watching, keep sharing. The world needs more what you both have to offer. Thank you so much. And that's the one thing I'm learning too. When people start commenting, I like to put them in part of my podcast as well to get the viewers involved. So that's something I'm learning too. And you know what? You're never too young or too old to learn. And then another one, Albany Gold Donnie. So I appreciate everybody watching and stuff like that. And like I said, I don't have the biggest audience right now, but some of the guys from the NBA have told me just keep focusing on doing your podcast, improving, getting good guests, and just keep working at it, and don't worry about the numbers right now. And sometimes I get discouraged, but you know what? I just keep going forward and stuff like that. And if I can help somebody else who's younger and wanting to get into podcasting or broadcasting, I will try to help them as much as I can, because I had help myself when I started out this podcast over 2 years ago, and I asked questions, and I learned from my friend Jamie, and like I said, every day I'm just trying to get better at this, and I'm really lucky to have guests come on my podcast.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like, you have a lot of people who come on like every single week. It takes me so
Yeah.
long to just get one guest, but I think it's because for me, I kind of stay in like one area sometime. And then since I like to interview athletes, I haven't really interviewed like reporters or anybody just yet. But since I like to interview athletes, I have to deal with them playing in the season. They don't always have as much time. Even in the off season, they're really busy. So it's kind of like I think that's why also another reason why I'm so slow. So I have to also expand from just football talk. Um, I do want to get into basketball. I also want to get into the WNBA, like seeing how that is. I really suck like knowing basketball. Football is really
Yeah.
my
Same.
I also want to get into hockey. I just recently watched a hockey game and it seemed pretty cool. So I think when I transfer like next fall, I'm gonna try to get into all of that, like so that
Yeah.
I can be even more versatile. And definitely reaching out to more women in sports. Eventually, for my podcast, I do want to have like, I don't know if it's gonna be like in person or just like on Zoom, but I want to definitely have a round table of like women in sports, because it's a small community, but there's also so many of us. Like when I went to the draft, I posted that I was going to the draft on LinkedIn, and so many people had reached out to me. And then I ended up being in group chats, I ended up having a higher following. My following went up probably a whole lot through when I mentioned that I was going to the draft. And it's just like a small community, and being in the group chats, everybody looks out for each other. I ended up being asked to do an Instagram takeover on somebody's Instagram page, and they have a pretty high following on their Instagram page. Like they had guests like Ryan Clark and some other reporters. So that was great exposure for me as well. So
And I was gonna say, there's one woman she's a friend of mine too. One I would reach out to. Her name is Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
yeah,
She's a friend of mine. She's on Facebook. She's on all. She does even more than me. I thought my schedule was crazy, but she is 24/7. Yeah. So if you know who she is, reach out to her, and I'm sure she can make the time for you. She'll come on. She's been on my podcast twice, and she's now with Valley Sports. But she's a really good person, and I think she'd be a great guest for you to have on your show.
Yeah, I like Kelsey. I actually reached out to her. I think it was maybe in the fall, like we had a phone call. Now we talk a little bit more like on LinkedIn. She's very busy, so we don't like chat all the time. But like she'll make little comments on my LinkedIn post saying she's proud of me. I actually was supposed to go to a sports business conference that she was leading, but I ended up not going. But she's also from the PG County area that I'm from. So she's been very helpful. I like talking to her. I also got connected with her through this program that I'm in. It's called NABJ, so National Association for Black Journalists, and she ended up being one of the speakers on the Zoom call with like Stephen A. Smith, Michael Wilbon, Monica McNutt, and some other big names in sports. So like I've been reaching out and talking to her for a very long time, but I never
Okay.
having her on my podcast, which is a really good idea.
Honestly, if she has the time, she'll do it. I know with me, there was times where she had to postpone about 5 or 6 times,
Yeah.
but I made it work with her, and she was so appreciative. And she's a really good person. She has a big heart, and she's now with Bally Sports. And like I said, I consider her a friend, and I'm just trying to be half as good as she is, because she's really great at what she does. She gets great guests, and she has a great personality and stuff like that. And one thing you mentioned too, Donnie, on here, my podcast is 80% sports, but now in the last few months, I've been reaching out to people that are in the music industry, reporters, actors, actresses. So I'm still a sports guy, huge sports fan, by the way, but I'm trying to branch out a little bit more too, to spread out, and so radio stations and media people see, hey, this guy can talk other things besides sports as well.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I need to work on too, the versatility, because one of my favorite I don't really know if she's a reporter, but one of my favorite sports people, her name is Taylor Rooks. she talks more entertainment. She can go to sports, and I think that's what makes her more like marketable. That she can talk to anybody. And another thing that I'm working on is like when I have guests to make them feel comfortable, like you're having a regular conversation. Um,
Yes,
the
absolutely.
I was kind of telling myself like, well, I had my friends and other people tell me like talk to them like a regular person. You don't want to ask them what other people are asking them. They're always like at the draft, what team do you want to go to, or who are
Yep.
you looking forward to picking you up? What's the process like? Blah blah blah. You want to actually make the athlete and the person you're interviewing feel like an actual person. So I think with Taylor Brooks, like I kind of like the way that she makes them feel like people. She asks them more personal stuff, and that makes them open up more so that the media is getting not too personal, but they're knowing more about them as a person and not just the athlete, which is what everybody sees. Like you want to kind of know like their background, what made them want to, be an athlete or made them who they are today, kind of what struggles they've experienced. So I like that a lot. That's something that I'm really definitely working on.
Absolutely. Eric Smith, the Toronto Raptors of the NBA play-by-play announcer, Chuck Swirsky from the Chicago Bulls, who I don't know how I did it, but I got them on. They told me the exact same thing as you. When I first started my podcast, Donnie, a couple years ago, everything I had written down on a script. And Eric and Chuck said that's okay to write some stuff down on paper, but talk to your guests like you're at a sporting arena, at a movie theater, or at a restaurant, and it makes for better conversation. And that's something I'm still working on and developing every podcast show to talk to my guests like we're just having a friendly conversation.
Yeah, I think I'm working on it too. Like when I start my podcast, of course I want to like tell my guests like the process. Like I've had a draft prospect on my show. So I wrote down some questions to kind of start the conversation, of course, but once they say something, I'll remember it and it'll lead into a different conversation. And sometimes I may not even get to the questions that I wrote down, but I feel like writing down some stuff keeps like I guess keeps you like a schedule or like an outline of how you
Yeah.
want to go. And if you're getting off track, sometimes you can revert back and remember that's the question that you want to ask after having a long conversation about something that's so off topic.
Absolutely. And one thing I've learned this too is listening skills. Because sometimes you ask a guest a question, they can answer 4 or 5 questions you're going to ask them. And then it doesn't look good when you ask them a question that they've already answered. So that's one thing I've been working on the last year plus is listening skills is huge.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. Sometimes I listen very closely. Like I get completely quiet, but I also have to work on like my facial expressions when I'm listening because sometimes it looks like I'm uninterested, but it's really like I'm trying to listen and then bring back what you were saying, like bring up one point that stood out to me, build a question in my head, and then come back out and ask you. But definitely have to work on listening, and my facial expressions. Like some
So
interviews I had to edit and like move their face over my face because I looked so like dry. But in reality, I'm actually just listening to what you were saying to keep the
that's
conversation, of course.
the one thing I would like to learn, maybe you can help me, is the editing thing at some point. I've done everything else on here, but the editing thing, maybe I will get somebody maybe to talk me through it. That way I'll learn how to do it. Because the more I've learned this too, the more you can learn, the more marketable you are, more valuable you are.
Editing, it's not a hard process. It depends on how well you want your videos to be. But I use Adobe Premiere. Again, you do have to pay for Adobe, but I think it may be like $20. It depends on how many. Adobe has like many different platforms. So they have Photoshop, they have the Premiere Pro, which is the editing. So it depends on how many things that you actually want to use. Also, Adobe will kill like I don't know what type of computer you may have, but you have to have a lot of storage for Adobe to work. I currently have to get a new computer because I edit so much. It's like killing my computer. So I need a
Okay.
storage. And also a big help for me. My friend had taught me like in one day how to edit. Like he was there watching with me. Then the next day I literally forgot everything. So YouTube was a big help for me. but I can't sit there and just watch somebody talk for so long. So I kind of skip through, kind of just figure stuff out on my own, and then watched how I wanted my videos to be created. And then I just got better as time went by. And then I also, in my classes, like I have a film minor. So they kind of teach you how to edit as well here, but I kind of already knew. But they also taught me a little bit more stuff. So it was kind of cool. But editing is a very tedious task. It's very time consuming, but it's worth it in the end.
That's the one thing I do need to learn, and thank you for letting me know about that as well. So, hey, before I get into my questions, can I just show my audience a little bit of a preview of your podcast? She's got the lead,
Yes.
with I think it was the head coach Penn Hills. I
Yeah.
think it was with it was Penn Hills, and it was just from April 1st this year. So just give me 1 second and I'm going to bring you on here. This is a great thing about StreamYard too. You can play video clips on here as well. Can you hear it okay?
Welcome back to She's Got the Lead. And for my first interview of the year, I have Penn Hills head coach, Charles Morris. So first, I want to say congratulations to you. This is your first head coaching job, and it's at your old high school. So could you tell me about the process of getting the job and how it feels?
Well, I would say it feels extremely good. I'm super excited because this is definitely somewhere I wanted to be. I always told myself and I prayed about it. If I ever become a head coach at a high school, I will hope that I get the opportunity to be a head coach at my high school. And God has blessed me with the opportunity to come back to my high school. In the process, it's like anything, you go through your trials and tribulations. It was like, there was openings for the position a few times. I applied 2 previous times and I didn't get it, didn't get a call back. And then on the 3rd time I got a call back and then officially got the job. So it feels so good that, just stayed the course and fought through those adversities and got an opportunity to be a head coach at my alma mater, which is just super exciting. And I'm just ready to get to work.
So since you're an alumni from Penn Hills, how was the tradition when you were at Penn Hills, and how are you going to carry that into coaching the guys now?
It was, I would say the biggest tradition was a sense of family and pride, and then the community. So trying to get all of those things back into the fold, so everyone feels like they're a part and together, like we do this together. I just remember my games, it was like the whole town would kind of shut down Friday nights and everyone would be at the game. So trying to get everyone back involved so that, they feel that mystique, that essence of Penn Hills again. So I know it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of communication, a lot of buy-in from people to come and support. And I'm, up for the challenge.
So do you feel like the kids are adjusting to you being that you are a younger head coach?
Yeah, most definitely. I think they like the feeling of someone who's closer in age that they can relate to, but also someone's old enough to maintain the discipline and structure, and knows kind of like the direction that they want to go in. I definitely think they're very, very receptive to the change. They've been coming on here, they've been working hard. We've been probably averaging about anywhere from 50 to 60 kids in the off season, and we have about 10 to 12 kids to run track, a few kids to play volleyball. I'm looking at it, our numbers is roughly anywhere from 70 to 80 kids, which is very exciting for the first season. So I'm definitely excited.
So also with you being a younger head coach, how are you setting up your kids for the recruitment process and like some connections?
So I think being younger and not being so far removed, I kind of know what's going on with college football. And there's multiple layers to it. One with COVID and how COVID kind of helped, and COVID kind of changed as far as like you starting to see a lot of juniors and seniors on college.
Yeah. Anyways, there's just some of your podcast work, and it was a 7-minute clip, but I just figured I would show about 3 minutes of it. So I thought you did a really good job with Penn Hills on there as well.
Thank you. Yeah, Penn Hills is like it's back in Pennsylvania, so it's that was actually my cousin. He's he's the new head coach of Penn Hills. Penn Hills is the high school that Aaron Donald had actually to. And then he ended up going to the University of Pittsburgh. So it has a really big name in Pennsylvania. So
Okay. And that leads to my question. Can you tell my audience here in Canada, and I'm in the Toronto area, tell us a little bit about your podcast show, She's Got the Lead, and how did you come about it and got the name for it as well? And where can my audience find it on live video and on audio? And how can my audience subscribe to your YouTube channel as well?
Okay, so well, you can find the podcast on my Instagram page, the Donnie Ray, and also it's on my YouTube channel, just Donnie Ray, DONNIRAE. I came about it when I realized that I wouldn't be on campus for the fall semester of my freshman year. So it kind of started out with just simply interviews. I wanted to be able to reach out and just have people come on my show and just interview them. So my first interview ended up being Jared Patterson. He went to Buffalo and now he plays for the Washington Commanders. He's a running back. My second interview, a friend from college, he plays college basketball that went to high school with me. And then my third one was Dane Jackson. He went to the University of Pittsburgh. He's a corner, and now he plays for the Buffalo Bills. And he was actually in the playoffs, in a starter in the playoffs. This past
Cool.
with the Bills. It's kind of the name started from like I wanted something that involved like that I was a female, so I said she's got like I wanted it to be she's got game. But I'm looking on YouTube and Instagram. I'm like I'm pretty sure that everybody has she's got game, she's got game. So I'm like, what's something else like she's got this? And I was like, in journalism, there's our stories are usually called leads, so instead of stories. So I was like, okay, I'll have a lead on a new story. So that's how I came up with she's got the lead. And it pretty much just took off from there. But like I said, since players are always in season, since things are always so busy for them, I ended up making it more of a talk show, I guess. And it ended up being me and my dad because there's times where me, my mom, and dad, I'm the only child, so we would sit, we would watch ESPN for dinner. Like we don't really put on movies like that around football season. We're strictly watching football. Sundays we don't leave the house. We're watching football. Like we're just a football family. Like do not ask any of us to do anything on a Sunday because we're watching all the games, literally. So, and then Mondays, sometimes there'll be a game, but there'll also be recaps of the games. Like on Monday, like First Take, we'll watch First Take sometime in the mornings. And me and my dad, like, we'll have debates or like we'll argue. And kind of like my mom's she's in it. Like sometimes she'll try to, I guess not break it up, but diffuse some of the stuff. Like we'll go back and forth, and I'm like, me and you go back and forth a whole lot about what we're saying. Like, why don't you be like my co-host on the show since I couldn't get that many guests being in season? And it kind of took off. And I'm named after my dad, so it's like I guess a cute little thing that we have going on. So I kind of want to continue it, and then it gets my dad involved in what I'm doing. Like he knows a lot about sports. Like he taught me most of the stuff. Like when I got into sports, I sat down and asked him, like, teach me this. Like I want to know what you guys are talking about. Like I said, on Sundays there's always football on. There's always football on. And I would sometimes when I was younger, I would just stay in my room, but I kind of want to be downstairs. So I'm like, if I can't watch the TV, I might as well learn like what's on TV. So can you explain it to me? And he's been involved in my sports journey for so long. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's the next question I wanted to ask you. Are you still good for another 5 minutes?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Can you just tell us about your role as CEO of Beauty by Royal Ray?
So Beauty by Royal Ray is a business that I have. I started it because I was going to college. I've never really had a real job, honestly. I'll be honest with you. I've never had a job like most high school or college students would. So I think going into my senior year, I was 17, so I decided to take a lash course. Um, and then I just started my lash business from there. The lash course wasn't really difficult. I learned, and then I just kept practicing, started posting myself. I made an Instagram page. I started taking clients, and I've been running my business for about 2 years. So it's pretty cool, like being an entrepreneur, especially in college. You can make your own schedule. You can go around your classes. This year, it has been very difficult for me because I always will put school first. So that's the only thing that's really been going on. But the semester is about to end next week, so I'll be fine. But it's a really cool job, I guess, being an entrepreneur, being a freelancer. I consider myself like a freelancer. Like I do everything on my own. I've never really worked for anybody but myself, so it's kind of teaching me. Like I'm guessing this is my role in life, honestly.
Honestly, and I'm freelance with my podcast, and then I do some work with the National Basketball League of Canada, which is a pro basketball league here in Ontario. And I like doing it because I can write blogs when I feel like writing a blog. I can do my podcast show when it's great. There are some advantages to being freelancer, and I'm getting experience doing this. So far, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, me too, definitely.
Okay, and this question I got to ask you. What was it like attending the 2022 NFL draft in Las Vegas, Nevada? What was that experience like?
It was a really great experience. Like I said, meeting so many women in sports. I actually met 4 girls. Now we're kind of friends, but they're from all over. So it's like I think one is from Texas, um, New Orleans, and then one is from Pennsylvania, and then I'm from Maryland. And they all go to different schools like LSU, TSU, York College. So now I have connections in the business. And then just being there, being in Vegas, we actually stayed at a hotel where the red carpet that the draft picks go to was across the street. So that was fun. Like when I would actually walk to the I worked the fan experience, so I would walk to the draft before my shift started, and I would walk past the red carpet every time coming out my hotel, record a video. It was really cool. And then when I did, my shift was working the autograph booth, so I actually got to see athletes firsthand. I seen Max Crosby, Chandler Jones, and Braxton Barrows. I think that's the correct name. But yeah, so we were kind of helping the fans go through and get autographs, and then towards the end, like, well, of course, you're kind of protecting them from the fans. So we were kind of talking to them and creating, like, putting names to faces. That was a great experience too. And then you get to see how many fans there are interacting. And then after my shift, I could actually see the actual draft. Like I got to see who my team picked, the Steelers. I got,
Steelers.
yeah.
Steelers. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, so we're
Uh,
getting a Pennsylvania rivalry there. Steelers and
yeah.
Eagles.
So I got to see our pick, one of our picks. Um, it felt really good just being in Vegas and seeing stars. It felt great because that was one of the first like business moves that I think that I've made, like traveling for work. And I'm kind of gonna get used to that, but traveling for work, it was just like a great experience. It made me feel like I'm actually making moves in the business. So I really enjoyed being in Vegas. And then like there was also like CBS was there. They were reporting live. Some other sports show was there too across the street doing the red carpet. Rich Eisman's down there. Brian Clark was down there. It was great. I wish I would have bumped into a little bit more people, but it was a really fun experience. Like I would definitely do it again. I'm looking into volunteering next year for the draft, also volunteering maybe for the Final Four, getting into basketball. But there's definitely so many opportunities out there for you guys to like just put yourself out there, just to network, just to get, put a name to the face. So
And I had an opportunity 2 weeks ago for a National Lacrosse League game. The Buffalo Bandits and Toronto Rock. One of the Bandits radio guys set it up for me, and I got to go to the game and work up in the media press box. I had to dress like a media member, and it was great. I got to talk to people in the industry, and I got to talk after the game. I got to go down to the post game conference and get to ask questions to the coach and the players, and it was a great experience. And I've made a lot of contacts and even some friendships from it.
yeah, definitely. I'm looking into doing some stuff like that when I go to Pitt, like doing the press box, just and also building the versatility. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Next question. I'm going to wrap it up shortly. Overall thoughts on the NFL draft and the top 5 players selected, and were you happy with what the Steelers drafted?
okay, well, so actually, since I was working the draft, I couldn't really see everybody, but I do remember the first 2 drafts. I was kind of surprised that they took the Georgia DN over the Michigan DN, but I mean, 1 and 2 doesn't really make a difference. So those 2 were kind of surprising to me because I definitely thought Aiden Hutchinson would go first, but he went second, so it's not
To the Lions, yeah.
Yeah, and with the Steelers pick, very, very, very excited. We picked Kenny Pickett, and Kenny Pickett actually went to the University of Pittsburgh, and something in me just told me like we have to get him. Like, so I don't know if you know, but Pitt actually practices on the same field that the Steelers practice on. Like, they have the same facility. Like, it's like I think they say like down the street or like they're neighbors basically. So I was like, if Kenny Pickett isn't off the board, the Steelers just have to get him. Like, they know how he plays already. They've seen him practice. They literally probably practice with him. So I was happy and I was in shock because I'm surprised that he was still on the board because we picked at number 20. But I definitely am happy with our pick. I'm happy with our entire draft, actually. And another, I can't really think about what else happened that I was surprised with. Oh, and also in the draft, this isn't top 5, but I was surprised at how low Malik Willis kind of went, but that's about it.
I was going to say, what's life going to be like without Big Ben Roethlisberger for the first time since 2004 or 2003, really?
Honestly, I don't know, but I think that Kenny Pickett, of course, we still have Trubisky, but I think that Kenny Pickett is going to leave like a new legacy like Ben did in Pittsburgh. I didn't really get to, my dad always told me this, I never really seen Big Ben in his prime. When I started getting into football, he was kind of getting older. So I'm like, oh, we need to get rid of Ben. We need to get rid of him. So I was always a big Ben supporter, but when he would mess up, I would literally like, he's messing up, like it's time. But I'm happy that we stuck it out with Ben and that we waited so long and that I think we do have a future quarterback in Kenny Pickett.
Okay. And I'm going to wrap this up with my last question. Any advice for those who are watching or listening to this podcast looking to pursue a career in journalism or broadcasting? And where can my audience find you if they want to follow you on social media?
Okay, so for time concerns, I would say when you're pursuing a career in journalism, you have to be confident and put yourself out there, and also networking. Networking is very heavy when you're pursuing a career in journalism because it's all about who you know, like connection. They'll like you said, they'll put you on. So they'll basically like, help you out with anything. So building those connections and putting yourself out there, not being afraid to put yourself out there, plays a big part in building a strong career in journalism because you're always talking in front of the camera, or even you're always writing. So you're always putting your opinions down, and specifically in journalism. So you always kind of want like a following and people who are supporting you. So you have to put yourself out there in order to be successful in journalism. And you guys can kind of just find me on Instagram. I'm mainly on Instagram at the Donni Ray, and then LinkedIn. Of course, I'm always on LinkedIn. I don't really use Twitter as much, but my Twitter is the same as my Instagram, the Donni Ray, and then my YouTube channel. But mainly Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Okay, definitely. And like I said, even just doing social media, Donnie, is a full-time job itself. But you know what? It's a lot of work, a lot of hard work. But you know what? This is something I have a passion for, and I like it. And just talking to you, I think you're gonna do really well in this industry as well. And I really appreciate you giving me some time today to come on my podcast live with CD here in Canada.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed talking to you.
Definitely, and we'll definitely keep in touch on LinkedIn. And also, I was gonna say my podcast later, I will download it to audio, so you'll be able to, if you want to listen to it later on audio, it'll be on my LinkedIn page, Twitter, YouTube, everything as well. So, again, Donnie, I want to say thank you so much for coming on live with CDP podcast. I hope you have a great day, and we'll definitely keep in touch with you on social media.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Donnie. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed my podcast with Donni Blackwell. You can also follow her on Instagram at the Donni Ray, and she's also on LinkedIn as well. If you'd like to follow her on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. So, and she's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So we'll see how the Steelers do this year without Big Ben Roethlisberger. It's going to be a new era in Pittsburgh Steelers football. Anyways, guys, today I have a double header. So just to let you know, My next live with CDP podcast is going to be today at 6 o'clock Eastern. My guest is going to be Brian Shanahan. He's a former lacrosse player. He's now a National Lacrosse League analyst, and he's also a writer for Inside Lacrosse. And Brian, Brandon is his brother, is a five-time Mann Cup champion from 1992 to 1996. And he's also a member of the Etobicoke Sports Hall of Fame in 2019. So, yes, he's related to Brandon Shanahan, the three-time Stanley Cup champion with the Detroit Red Wings, NHL Hall of Famer. But the Shanahan family is known for lacrosse as much as they are for hockey. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Brian about his career in lacrosse and talk some NLL and also the playoffs that's coming up this weekend as well. So I'm really looking forward to speaking to Brian. And yeah, he's also the member of the Etobicoke Sports Hall of Fame in 2019. And as for the NLL, the quarterfinal winners will play in the conference finals. Obviously, this is going to happen this week. The first games are set this weekend with Colorado, San Diego, Friday night at 10 o'clock. And then Sunday night, Toronto at Buffalo at 6 o'clock at the KeyBank Center. And you guys can go on nll.com/schedule, playoff broadcast schedule, and it's on there as well. And like I said, guys, the series start this week. Colorado, San Diego, and Toronto, Buffalo, they're best of threes. So looking forward to that. Also, guys, just to let you know, Live with CDP podcast, the audio version is downloaded to Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and my LinkedIn page as well. So I'll do that this morning as well. And you guys can also follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. That's at Live with CDP on TikTok as well. And also, guys, just to let you know, WordPress.com/home live with CDP podcast.wordpress.com. I just wrote a blog late last night about the return of the NBL of Canada playoffs. So I hope you guys can check that out. Again, you guys can go on WordPress.com/home/live with CDP podcast.wordpress.com and check out my National Basketball League of Canada playoff blog and my predictions for that series as well. And I'm just going to put that on here right now too, guys. Just 1 second. If I can find it. The NBL of Canada playoffs for the first time since 2019 begin this Sunday, May 15th. You got Windsor, London, game 1 at 2 o'clock at Budweiser Gardens. Kitchener-Waterloo Titans, Sudbury 5 at 3 o'clock from the Sudbury Arena. Both series are best of 5, so I'm looking forward to that as well. And some sad news, guys. Detroit Pistons legend and Basketball Hall of Fame center Bob Lanier died on Tuesday, yesterday. He was 73 years old. Bob Lanier was an 8-time NBA All-Star, and he's the Pistons' all-time scoring average leader at 22.7 points per game. So condolences to Lanier's family and friends and former teammates. So one of the greatest Pistons of all time and a Hall of Fame center as well. So he passed away at 73. So anyways, guys, I think I'm going to wrap up my podcast show for this morning. But again, I just want to say thank you to my guest, Donni Blackwell, for coming on. And I hope you guys can tune in to tonight with Brian Shanahan. And we'll do the podcast at 6 o'clock. And I'm looking forward to it. So just 1 second right there. Next Live with CDP podcast tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern with Brian Shanahan. And we're going to talk some National Lacrosse League and his career as a lacrosse player and what it was like being a 5-time Mann Cup champion from 92 to 96. I believe he's one of 8 players to do that as well. So all right, guys, that's about it. Just again, I want to say thank you to my guest, Donni Blackwell, for coming on. And I'm looking forward to tonight's podcast at 6 o'clock. Season 3, episode 38 was Brian Shanahan. And we're going to talk some National Lacrosse League. So I hope you guys all have a great afternoon. And we'll see you guys tonight at 6 o'clock with Brian. Again, thank you everybody watching live on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't, on Facebook Live and Twitter, and also those who listen to this on audio form later on Apple, Google, Spotify, Anchor FM, Breaker, Pocket Cast, LinkedIn, Radio Public. Have a great afternoon, guys, and we'll see you tonight at 6 o'clock for another edition of Live with CDP podcast.